and transmitting their genes in a particular environment. Every child is a blank slate, says Dennis. So Dennis Prager advocates the proposition nation, a country that's primarily united by shared beliefs rather than being a particular people. He advocates the proposition family, parents and children who are united by their shared beliefs. Says, as a father, my purpose is not to pass on my seed, but to pass on my values. Dennis Prager does not believe the family is a big deal when compared to the importance of the individual. So Dennis Prager said, traditional life in Europe became, you are defined by your family, but that's not the way it ought to be. You are defined by you, not by your family. People think family is a big deal. It's not. It's a big deal. Who are you? Right, so Prager views that we are primarily individuals rather than members of families, extended families, tribes, and nations. This is a very modern and liberal perspective. It's the opposite perspective of a great intellectual like John J. Mearsheimer in his great 2018 book, The Great Delusion, Liberal Dreams and International Realities. So there, John Mearsheimer wrote, my view is that we are profoundly social beings from the start to the finish of our lives, and that individualism is of secondary importance. Liberalism downplays the social nature of human beings to the point of almost ignoring it, treating people as atomistic actors. Political liberalism is an ideology that is individualistic at its core, assigns great importance to the concept of inalienable rights. This concern for rights is the basis of liberalism's universalism. Everyone on the planet has the same inherent rights. This is what motivates liberal states to pursue ambitious foreign policies like invading Afghanistan and Iraq. So public and scholarly discourse about liberalism since World War II has placed enormous emphasis on human rights. Right? Human rights have defined the most elevated aspirations of social movements and political entities. They evoke hope, provoke action. Now, from a traditional perspective, from my perspective, Mearsheimer's perspective, humans do not operate as lone wolves. Humans are born into families, into tribes, into social groups, into societies that then shape their identities well before they can assert their individualism. Individuals usually develop strong attachments to their group. They're frequently willing to make great sacrifices for their family. Humans are tribal at their core. The main reason for our social nature is that the best way for a person to survive is to be embedded in a family, a society, a community, a tribe, and to cooperate with fellow members rather than act alone. Remember, I talked about that Netflix series on apes in Africa, and when the apes got separated from the group, they would often be attacked and killed by other apes. Safest place is life within the tribe. Despite its elevated ranking, reason is the least important of the ways that we determine our preferences. It's less important than socialization. Right? Humans have a long childhood in which they are protected and nurtured by their families, ideally, and their surrounding society, and so they are exposed to intense socialization. They're only beginning to develop their critical faculties. They're not equipped to think for themselves. By the time an individual reaches the point where his reasoning skills are developed, such as age 25, his family, his society, his community, his religion have already imposed an enormous value infusion on him. So the individual is born with innate sentiments. They're not born a blank slate. So people have very limited choice in formulating a moral code because so much of their thinking about right and wrong comes from inborn attitudes and socialization. So Dennis Prager's whole agenda is reworking people's moral code, but reality is people have very limited choice in formulating their moral code. So if John Mearsheimer is right, and I believe he is, then Dennis Prager is just another guru spouting pseudo-profound nonsense. And so this idea that a country or a family should primarily be held together on the grounds of ideology, right, that we should love our parents or our siblings or our children because we agree with their views on the Constitution, that's ridiculous. And what best predicts, lifetime outcomes, right? Genetics, right? Nature, not nurture, is the main determinant of how much money people make, how well people perform at school and university. Dennis says, I don't know what I've learned morally that I didn't know in 5th grade. I can't think of a single moral insight. So he hasn't learned anything morally since 5th grade. Dennis says, the word for servant, the word for slave is the same in the Torah, which is why Jews don't like to be servants because they think it is slavery. Did you ever meet a Jewish waiter? Jews don't wait. Jews don't want to serve anybody. Right? That's ridiculous, right? If you're going to make money, you're going to have to serve people. Dennis realized early on that his own instincts are simply identical to God's Torah. Right? Dennis's instincts and God's instincts are identical. And that blew my mind, says Dennis. My natural mode of thinking was the Torah's mode of thinking. right? Dennis was just aligned with God, right? His way of thinking was the same as the Torah's way of thinking, right? That's his discourse. Man, can you imagine what that's like to realize that you and God are on the same wavelength, that your thinking and God's thinking are just meshed?
I don't remember when, but it was early on.
Amazing.
I said to myself,
wow,
your instincts are identical to the Torah's.
Wow.
And it blew my mind.
And remember, God wrote the Torah. So when Dennis says his instincts are identical to the Torah, saying that his instincts are identical to God's instincts. Can you imagine what a revelation that would be as a lad to realize that you and God have the same instincts?
My natural mode of thinking was the Torah's mode of thinking.
Wow.
And that's why I feel such a moral obligation to get it in print.
Thank you, Dennis.
Because if you take those 5 books seriously, you will think morally clearly. You will think clearly about everything.
And you'll be so much happier.
Yeah, well, you could testify.
Oh
to
my
that.
God. I mean, society will run better. Your life will run better. Personally, you will feel enriched and fulfilled and happier. I really think, and I know it sounds sort of extreme or perhaps like I'm hyperbolizing to say it, I think it's the answer to everything.
Oh, I know it's the answer to
is.
everything. That's why it's frustrating that it isn't out there more.
I know.
As much as it's out there, my biggest frustration is it's not out there more.
He's talking about his own Torah teachings, because his instincts are identical with the Torah's. Like his instincts then are identical with the author of the Torah, who is God. Dennis Prager's perspective. His instincts are identical with God's. He has walked through his life with the identical instincts as the creator and sustainer of the universe.
This is the answer to evil or even unhappiness.
Mm-hmm. I said this, I know I said the first part on our podcast, but I said this second part in the PragerU video I just filmed, and I think it's worth mentioning here. You know that I think it's incredibly creepy that people my age fight against things that most of them have never seen before. Racism, climate change. Oppression, what are their words?
Can you imagine what it's like to be aligned with the master of the universe, have the same instincts as the Torah?
Homophobia, transphobia, etc. But on the flip side of that, the things that they disparage, they have never tried out before.
So sad that more people, don't get to tap in to Dennis Prager's mode of thinking, which is identical with God's mode of thinking. This is the answer to everything, guys. Dennis Prager's teachings. So there are over 1 million Jews in the world, who base their lives on Torah. I don't think anyone seriously could look at them and say, oh, these guys have the answer to everything. I mean, I don't think anyone could look at, Torah Jews and even say, oh, these Jews clearly have the answer to evil and unhappiness, right? They have an answer, right? They have, many good things going on, but you're not going to look at Orthodox Jews and say, oh, these guys have the answer to everything, to evil, unhappiness, because they have Torah. Dennis says, I don't ever remember meeting cruel religious Jews. And Dennis says, it is our task to figure out what is eternal in the Torah without just choosing what we are comfortable with. Dennis says, tribalism is racism. Tribalism is a curse for modernity. I don't like any ethnic neighborhood. I don't think it's the American ideal. If you see another person, you should see another one of God's children. You should not see white or black, right? It's a very dangerous idea that race and culture are identical. Race is race, culture is culture. Either, guys, we believe we are all God's children and character matters more than skin color, or we don't. Racism, that people of a certain skin color are inherently different, is not only evil, guys, it's moronic. To divide people by pigmentation, genitals, and money is wrong. We should divide people only by good and bad. And Dennis says that the spread of Christianity is the best hope for Africa. Point number 9 from the Gurometer: conspiracy mongering. To gain real insights, real specialized knowledge that nobody else can see. That takes hard work, even a lifetime of study. That's not nearly enough for a guru who needs a steady supply of fresh, original content to supply to their followers and justify their status. To be a guru, they must set themselves up not only as uniquely insightful, but to be above and apart from all orthodoxies, including established political and ideological groups. They're encouraged to go beyond standard heterodoxy, contrarianism, and skepticism into the realm of conspiratorial ideation. The expert consensus, by definition, tends to supply the most reasonable and evidence-based perspectives based on current information. The guru is in a position of needing to provide a strongly contrasting perspective and to supply the arguments that back up their bold claims in a compelling way. This leads them inexorably down the path of bespoke, that means individualized, conspiracy mongering, with an alternative view of events that authoritative sources can't tell you about, won't tell you about. So conspiracy theories require a suppressive network to explain away their lack of evidential support, why almost nobody is willing to accept these theories. So gurus are subject to this dilemma. They'll often need recourse to some conspiracy. With their conspiracy theories, their reasoning will become intricate but subject to massive overreach, and they will tend to disregard simpler or more conventional alternative explanations. I'd give